Welcome to the Secret Keepers podcast with your host, Corinne Zuleger. Join us as we uncover the hidden thoughts, stories, and moments that help bring light to the healing power of truth and examine how silence can affect us mentally, physically, and spiritually. We'll also share profound stories, interviews, and transformative narratives to help release ourselves from the hidden and step into healing towards inner peace, joy, and fulfillment. Now, here's your healing strategist and host, Corinne.
Welcome to the Secret Keepers podcast. And I'm your host, Corinne Zuleger. And today, my guest is Ash Mars, and I'm going to have her tell you a little bit about herself.
Thank you, Corinne, for having me. We've had such rich conversations to get to this point. And I feel like we are such a vibe as mamas and parents and people who are living in a very unique moment in our history. I come to this conversation today really just with this desire to have this open friend dialogue with you. I've been through my own healing journey. I believe, big parts of that we've already talked about have been my experience through birth and how that changed me. I was an educator for about a decade, and the ways that I showed up in this very mama parental role as a teacher. And then how do I bring that into my own child and the raising of my own child? And and then the journey of that, which is so much not about other people and so much about what's happening inside of me. And so that's what I'm excited to explore with you today. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so awesome. I
Yeah.
have found in my journey through motherhood that they have taught me. So I have three adult
Mhm.
children, and they have taught me so much about myself
Yeah.
and about the world, because
I
they
would
do
say,
see things
yeah.
different.
Just having had a baby, so I had a baby about a year ago. They are the perfect little vessel to project all of my doubts and fears upon. And I'm like, oh, I think the baby is feeling this way or that way. I think the baby is mad at me. I think the baby doesn't like me. I think the baby is this way. And it's like, the baby isn't any of those things. It's all
Oh,
me projecting as the baby. And so especially when I feel my insecurities from my own childhood come up, this sense of the baby's rejecting me or they don't love me as much as they love other people. I have to taking that step back and that breath to
yeah.
be like, oh, that's coming from my stuff. Because baby doesn't have any of that. Baby's just the baby. They're just being. Yeah.
Yeah, I do a lot of work with clients with inner critic and having, those and where does that really come from, right? Where are those thoughts coming in from? And they're just stored in a data bank.
Yeah.
Just like the computer, your brain, y- your thought processes anyways are only 5% on the conscious level, and 95% of them are running behind the scenes, like all the tabs that you left open, right? So like I totally get that, because you're looking at this perfect little human,
Yeah.
and when they come out like that, and then you're questioning, like, am I even capable of
Yeah.
caring for this, when most days I got all I can do to take care of me.
That self-doubt, that's so real.
Sure.
There's
Absolutely.
so much preparation. The other part of what you were saying of so many scripts running in our brain. Yeah, it's like having a song when songs are stuck in your head and it's in the
Yeah.
background and you're just like, oh, this is background noise. It's actually what's happening right now. But yeah, that self-doubt. We talk so much with children and going through birth processes of, be prepared for the moment of transition, right? Be prepared for their birth. Prepare them to go to school. Be prepared to get them to college. But then what, right? How do I actually support that? And a conversation that we started with, and I've been having with coaching clients as well, is how do I actually teach them the independence that they need, as opposed to bring them to heal and rein them in. And that that's something that I think as mamas and as parents, we're answering for ourselves in very different ways. I know for me, we were talking about different ways of parenting, and there can be a lot of control. There's so much safety and control. When I was teaching, if I could control everything. Every 5 minutes, they were doing something different. Well, life is not a classroom. When it's that real.
Right.
And it's more of like, how can I create an environment where they can explore, where they can find their own limits and just know that like when they hit the end of their comfort, that they can turn around and look at me and know that I'm here for them and that I can either encourage them to keep going or I can say, you're right, you're not safe there. Come back to me.
Yeah.
An example of this is we have these big rocks outside of our house that a baby was climbing on them and they were just like crawling up and crawling up and they get to this point where they're like, I'm really high. They start to notice that. And they look back at me and I can either say like encouraging them, like keep going, you're still safe. Or I'm like, yeah, you're right. That's a good point to check in for yourself and come back. And this is baby's now 13 months old, but I have a 15-year-old and we're doing the same thing with him. As he's launching into college and he's launching into that next phase of his life, it's like, how can I actually put this into your responsibility so that when you take the leap, right? How many of us have or know people who, that jump, that leap into adulthood for their kids didn't go well. I know I even had that with where I had to go home a couple of times because I just like didn't hit the skill set. And
Yeah.
so it's really being intentional of press your wings now while I'm here to keep you safe. And you can fall and you won't break your wing. I'll make sure you don't break your wing. I'll make sure you don't push yourself to the point of no return and you fail completely. But I can be here to help and then to help teach you how to fly is a big part of what we're doing.
Yeah, with kids, it's the goal really is independence. We want to teach them
Mm-hmm.
to be independent so they can go out and we want them to be functioning, productive adults in society. If we rule too much with an iron fist, there may be that um, bucking up. I know you had used the horse analogy earlier, right? If I'm
Yeah,
pulling the reins so hard, they aren't gonna like that, right? Just like a horse
yeah,
doesn't like it. The bit hurts their mouth. They're like,
yeah,
no, this isn't comfortable, and
yeah.
they're gonna make mistakes. Failure is going to happen because they're human, and some of their behavior, there are going to be moments when you're going to be like, ay ay ay, who is this? I know I didn't teach him that. um but we can have a belief that if I hold on to that rein really hard, I this resonates so much with me because this was me with the oldest one. I felt that if I knew everything she was doing, if I micromanaged and controlled everything, that nothing bad was ever going to happen.
Yeah. That's
And
what we
that
want
was
though,
kind
right? But I resonate with that so much as a parent because it's just this like, I don't want you to get hurt, baby. Like
yeah.
scraped knees, like burning your hand on the stove, like all of those things. And with
Oh,
and with adults, it's like, oh gosh, you could make real decisions that like could end up with
yeah.
jail or homelessness. Like there are real consequences.
Yeah. Their
And we don't
mental
want,
illness
yeah,
and
your mental
everything.
health. Yeah, exactly. And so it's balance. And bringing it back to that personal part, right? Like when I find myself wanting to control, it's because I don't feel safe. And it
Okay.
actually doesn't necessarily have anything to do with them. And and that's that moment. It's like, oh, when I see that, I'm like, oh crap, I gotta check myself again. I gotta, what's going on? Because I don't feel
Yeah, that resonates so much with me because that was really all of my control was about. I felt that because I grew up in an unsafe home with
yeah,
unpredictability, with substance abuse, and
yeah.
I felt that you know, if I had control, right? We didn't have any
Mm-hmm.
control as kids. We didn't have control if dad was going to come home drunk with his uncles and fights were going to break out and we were going to be witnessing violence. we didn't have any control. And so I was like, I just need to keep my kids safe.
Yeah.
We dealt with bullying because we moved and, we were different and I didn't want my kids to have to deal with that kind of stuff. And guess what?
Yeah.
They did anyways. I didn't find out until after the fact, which I think was even more mortifying. It was like, oh my God, you were going through what? And what happened? And but yeah, it's an illusion. Like that
Yeah.
belief that I can somehow just micromanage every little detail of their lives,
Yep.
and that will just it will keep them safe, and they'll be
Yeah.
happy, and they'll be healthy. And you and I both know that what we can do to keep them healthy is hopefully, we can get them to eat the food that we cook for them.
Yep.
But
Yep.
then
We have
even
three no
there,
thank you bites in our house. You have to take three no thank you bites. And then if you still don't want any, that is fine.
okay. And that's so good. It was like, I mean, when I was growing up, I was the kid left sitting at the table because I absolutely refused to eat it. I couldn't. I'd just be gagging peas, and but that created a whole host of other issues with me in
It was a
regards to
power
food.
struggle, right? You're
It
just
was.
inviting a power struggle with your
Yeah.
kid of like, and basically it's just the argument of you is not no. No, 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 no. Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. And it really is about we want what's best for them.
Yeah.
And then the reality of is they are their own souls.
Yeah.
They are here.
That is it exactly. They are their own souls. They
Yeah.
are here for their own
Yeah.
experiences.
And we
Yeah.
can want what we want for them. It's just like
Hmm.
when, you and I both worked with students, we can want what we want for them, but they have to want that for themselves. And
Yeah.
I would find myself, worried and, things that were completely out of my control when it came
Mm.
to them. And then at the end of the day, this is what's in my control, what I'm modeling, how do I behave in their presence?
Yeah.
How am I handling my stress? Um,
Hmm.
what am I
And
eating? Yeah,
modeling is a really big word. So if our audience hasn't heard of that before, what does that even mean?
yeah. So like
Hmm.
modeling is, how I behave, who am I
Yeah.
being, right? Who am I
Yeah.
being?
Yeah.
Um, so if I handle, like, say I'm upset, something upset me, and my
Hmm.
go-to is I punch the wall, I
Yep.
am modeling that behavior,
Showing them that's the way.
right?
Yep.
Right. Showing
That's
them
how we
this
handle
is,
anger is to punch the wall. Yeah.
or because anger is the easiest emotion.
Hmm.
If we don't work with our youth and teach them there are a whole gamut of emotions, anger
Yeah.
being the easiest one to go to, but what am I really feeling under here? Often after we peel back all them layers,
Yeah.
I'm not feeling safe. I don't feel connected.
And that's usually what it
I don't
is.
feel
Is
worth.
this, yeah. The surface is anger and sadness and depression and anxiety. And like we're having a lot of conversations about that. We're doing a lot of meditations and a lot of dialogue about that stuff. But we're not having a conversation of what's really happening.
Yeah,
That I feel safe. I don't feel grounded. I don't feel seen. I don't feel
yeah,
heard. And all of that just starts from right here, right inside of us.
right.
Yeah.
In the center, right? In your
Hmm.
center. And having people understand that um even getting out and moving your body and how do we
Hmm.
that's another modeling, like if I'm um sitting all day and that's all I do, or if
Yeah.
I don't go to work or so everything that we do is being
Yeah.
watched.
Yeah. And
And
I think what you're saying, the really powerful statement I'm hearing you say is actually the best thing we can do for our kids is be our best self, period.
yeah, be our best
When
self.
you show up as your best, when you are doing the workout or you are managing your own anger and you are modeling safety from within yourself and
Yeah.
you show up that way, when
Mhm.
I show up that way, that's all I got to do.
Right.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
that's
that
also, it's like, wait, I don't have to teach them. Wait, I don't have to like tell them what to do. No, show them. Show them by being it and by living it. And it's a really like old saying of, you got to put your oxygen mask on first. You got
Yeah.
to take care of yourself first. You got to fill, you can't pour from an empty cup, right? Like we have all of these things, but I don't think what we're talking about is this true and this very deep truth, which is the only person I can fix and help is myself. And when I do that, I inspire other people to do the same for them in the way that works for them without me trying to lecture and point fingers and tell them what
Right.
works for me. I actually give them access to their own power when I have claimed mine.
Yes, 100%. Again, and I feel that because the projection of blame,
Yeah.
we see it a lot in our
Hmm.
society, right? It's his fault, it's her fault, it's the government's fault, it's everybody
Yeah.
else's fault, except for the person in the mirror. But what happens when you really start holding yourself accountable
Yeah.
and recognizing that, huh, you know, maybe my reaction wasn't warranted. Not that people don't do things.
Yep.
We have choice in it, right?
We
Somebody
have choice
can,
on how we respond, right?
yes, yes.
Y'all can go and do your math. Y'all can do it. That's fine. Please do. But I have a choice on how I want to respond to that. And
Yeah,
am I responding in I'm going to add to it by, giving my energy and I'm going to join you in that mess? Am I going to add to it by pointing fingers and being like, you're all doing something dumb? Or am I going to stay in my sovereignty? Am I going to stay in my power? Am I going to stay in my core of, cool, y'all are messing around and I just don't want to mess with that right now, so I'm going to go over here.
yeah,
Or, cool, I see what you're doing and how you're handling whatever problem is going on. I'm going to handle it differently from this way that keeps me in my ground and keeps me in my center.
really, and being
Um,
and really being okay with your individuality,
mm, mm,
right? Because you see a lot of this, like when we're working with teenagers, not
yeah,
even tweens, right? And I think it's getting even younger than that.
yeah.
Is this comparison and kind of copying and losing,
Social media is it's just
yeah,
bombarding our kids with this stuff. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
and
Yeah,
losing that individuality. It's like I want my kids to be
yeah.
who they came to be, who they're created to be. They're beautifully and wonderfully unique, each one of
Mm-hmm.
them.
Mm-hmm. That's
I
why
don't
we love
want
them. They're so
cookie,
sweet.
right? I don't want cookie cutter, right?
Yeah,
That's not what we came here to do. Like
yeah,
you're very different and I'm very different, but yet we have
yeah.
lots and lots of things that we share in common. How we
Mm-hmm.
express our things, can come out very differently.
Yeah. And
And
our base human need is to belong, right?
yeah,
We are social. We are herd creatures. If we don't belong to the herd or the pack and we're on the outside,
yeah,
it is a literal threat to our lives, right? And
yeah,
so our brains are hardwired with what are mirror neurons. The
yeah,
very first neurons we've got, especially like watching baby, it's been so funny, is to just mirror what I'm doing, right? That first smile, baby doesn't
yeah.
know what a smile is. They're just copying what my face looks like to them. And those are the first things we have. So when we watch all this social media, when we access all of this information, our brains are saying this is how I'm supposed to behave. And to get to the neuroscience of why modeling and why just being it is so powerful, we'll say right there. Your brain is going to want to do what it sees and what it experiences. It's seeing both body language, it's feeling all of those things, all of those like micro expressions and everything below the surface. You're not processing any of that, but you're feeling it and you're responding it from somebody to from other people. And that that's the key right there. That
Absolutely.
our sense of belonging is so caught up in cutting off parts of who we are
Yeah.
and showing up as something we aren't. And we believe that it's going to put us on the outside of the circle. But the reality is when we realize and we claim our power and our sovereignty, especially in today's world, in the way that we can connect with people like we are right here across the
Yeah.
country, you actually find the weird. You will find the other people who want to be weird just like you. And then you have these other communities that you are like, oh, I don't have to I don't have to be a lemming. I don't have to be a thing I don't feel like I am. And people will still love and care about me. And it's like, yeah, actually, they'll love and care about you even more because they love and care about who you are so very deeply and not a mess that you are showing to other people. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I was thinking about, growing up in a time period where it was do as I say, not as I do. Um, and my dad would often say something about like, be careful of people who speak with forked tongue, right? So
Mhm.
basically, people who are speaking out of both sides of their mouth, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they can't come to what they honestly believe, whether they can't say it out loud or whatever it is, they're trying to
Hmm.
please, everybody.
Yeah.
Um, but that whole do as I say, not as I do was a rub for me because it was like, um, you're modeling it though, right? So I'm
Yep.
watching
This
you
is what you're
do
showing me
this.
to do.
Yeah. And I think of like, when I see, young children, very small children with electronic devices, um, and they're just fixated on that. Or I see a young mother and she's feeding the baby, but yet she's on her phone scrolling instead
Yeah.
of, making the eye contact and the facial expressions with the baby. And those are things that they don't recognize necessarily that have long-term repercussions, right? That
Yeah.
if the baby doesn't get to read my emotional signals, there
Yeah.
isn't emotional safety, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That
Yeah,
piece,
exactly. So like
right?
when I'm shut down, baby can't find safety in me.
Right,
Yeah. If I'm checked out. Yeah, exactly.
right. Yeah, and
Yeah.
there's, and we're human. I mean, it's
Mhm.
gonna happen.
Yeah.
But if it's all the time and the
Yeah.
baby can't find that safe space,
Yeah.
um, and that
And
goes
the
to children, right?
and just for like an audience member who might be listening, the research says really only 30% of the time that if you have emotional depth and consistency with folks 30% of the time, that's actually enough because you are also having a human experience. You and
Yeah.
I are having a human experience.
Yes,
There are times when I am sitting with the baby and it's like, you know what, we have been playing truck for I don't know how many hours and I am really bored with this. But you need to keep playing truck and that's fine. But what you
yes.
also need is me to just be next to you. And that's okay. That's okay. I can also show baby that there's different ways of being with somebody and still being present with them. It doesn't have
Oh,
to be I'm right here all of the time. It can be we're here together enjoying separate things that we like. And I
yeah,
think, we talk about the pressure that gets put on moms, where it's like if it's not perfect, if it's not 100% of the time. And this is, yeah, 30%. Literally, like there has been research studies done, and if you want to link them, or I can see if I can find them, but like that's, give yourself some grace, friends, give yourself some grace. But at each stage. And so we were talking about babies, but it's also my spouse. It's also my friends and family. How
oh yeah,
often am I getting out my phone and like just looking at it when I'm at dinner with
yeah.
people, or I'm thinking about the phone call I need to be making. Like, yeah, my brain's in five different places and I'm not present with actually what's happening in front of me. It's the same thing.
Very
Yeah.
distracted, right? And
Hmm.
that's why I think there was a study that came out that had said that the human being has an attention span less than a goldfish now because
Yeah.
we're so used to being constantly entertained. Um, that's why it is important to let our children be bored, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to put bored in air quotes because it gives them an opportunity to drop into their imagination and use their creativity, and that piece of things is so very important to be
Yeah.
able to dream and to, come up with like, what do I want my world to look like instead of being told what it is. That just gives it's expansive if they can have that opportunity again to be quote bored, but and there's so much. So, I'm very curious as to, um, obviously you have children and this has been really important to you.
Yeah.
And you were an educator at one point, and I'm really curious, um, was there kind of like maybe a secret you kept that got
Mm,
you into this area that you were, um,
yeah. Yeah. Do we want to go for the jugular? Like, do we really want to know why Ash is the way Ash is? Yeah, I mean, traumatic childhood for sure. And something that was very unique to me in my childhood was my parents were Scientologists. And that very much shaped my upbringing. And so, for those who are not familiar with Scientology, it is a very small religion, and they have a very specific belief system that your emotions are kind of like demons that inhabit your body, and that is part of their belief system. And in order to remove those, they would legitimately connect me to what was more or less a lie detector machine, and until I did not have an emotion and it was flat, so, lie detectors are responding to your heart rate and your blood pressure and all of that. And then it was when you're flat, when you have no up or down with whatever the stimulation is going on, a phrase, somebody uh, saying mean things to you, somebody hurting you, like legitimately, that is the kind of experience that I had when I was growing up. And so it took a lot of time to realize that that is a way of processing emotions. But for me, it was shutting down, suppression, all of that. Where the person who made the belief system was coming from, he was studying some like 1950s psychology. And so what he was trying to do, giving, best intention, what he was trying to do was exposure therapy, right? If I expose you to something over and over again, then it will no longer bother you. And some other just like things from like 1950s psychology that we just like know aren't necessarily true anymore. Or we've developed deeper understanding of, I guess is the best way to say that. So yeah, let's see, I separated from the church in probably like middle school, high school, really started digging into the experience of how they taught me, what they taught me, are those things true or not, in my early 20s. And that then, quite honestly, is part of why I did the work that I did with kids, because I was like, oh man, like what I went through was so intense, so very, very intense. But everyone's going through it to a certain degree. In what you were talking about with your parents, of like, do as I say and not as I do. Uh, you know, what boys shouldn't cry. Why are you upset about this? It's not a big deal. Even small phrases like that are micro movements that we're saying and doing every day to make somebody feel to make it that your emotions aren't safe, or that you are not safe in what you are feeling. Um,
but from
yeah,
a lack of awareness, right? This is not something that's
exactly.
intentional. And I think that
Not at
that's
all.
really important. So this is not about blaming, it's about understanding and recognizing.
Exactly. I think things are so very small and so very minor, but it's just that's what's part of our culture. It's a part of our society, and it's not a blame. It's just a like, oh, because I had such an intense experience, I can see how these smaller things do similar work, right?
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that
Yeah.
piece of your life. And then, so emotional intelligence is very important to you, right? To be
Yeah.
able to relate to somebody on a level of, you know, of understanding instead of reactions. And that I totally understand because in, growing up and seeing things the way I did, we were kind of the kids who, when we, with each other, my brother and my sister and I, um, if you had beef with someone, it was, like you kind of told them off or you popped them one or,
Yeah.
whatever, right? And that
Hmm.
was kind of the way it was. Now, I was more of a hider, though I kind of avoided those confrontations for the
Yeah.
most part. Um, but then, then I get married and, I go like, something upsets me, so I'm yelling, yell, right? And my husband was not raised like that, quite differently, and where there was no confrontation,
Yeah.
right? And so even when you look at that, right, it's very different. And so we were really looking to have kind of a happy medium at our house is what it was. And having that emotional intelligence though, and saying that, I mean, obviously, right, even as parents, you can't control everything that's going to happen between siblings and whatnot, but knowing that, if I understand my emotion and the emotion behind something, I can kind of direct it in a way that is far more productive than popping
Mm-hmm.
somebody in the nose. So,
Yeah. Yeah, and I think what you bring up is, a really good point of oftentimes the script, right? The program we're running in our brains, in our marital relationships with our husbands and our wives is the same that we learned when we were little. So like we grew up in different households, they weren't exactly the same. I even last night I was my wife and I were having an argument, and we had this it got real big, and that would have happened when I was a child. Everything was very like, I will have a conversation with you like a robot, and we do not have conflict. And that's what I was taught a good relationship was. And so
yeah,
when my wife and I had this big blow up, and I was like, I'm done with you, and I slammed out the door, and I walk into another room, and then we both took minutes, and we
yeah,
came back, and it was like, yeah, I hear what you were saying, and that I couldn't hear it in that moment, and that we got to a stalemate. We got to that moment of fighting, that head to head, we're just essentially in power struggle moment. We did need a break. Was that to take a break? I don't know. But it's how we needed to end it in that moment. And so we went through this repair cycle, and then it was like, man, I really love you. I really love that we can have conflict where I can go full out and be upset. And then we can have full blown repair cycle and just like be like, yeah, no, you're my person. You're the
yeah,
person that makes me feel safe enough to be angry. That was really big for me with her, was my anger wasn't safe when I was little. So
yeah.
finding someone who can hold my anger, who can witness my anger and still make me feel safe. Break my heart open and just let me melt inside. Yeah. Yeah.
So good, so good. And so obviously this like didn't come through osmosis. You had a process
Yeah.
um, of getting to this point of self-awareness and in all of your emotional intelligence. And
Yeah.
like, what kind of things did you do if the audience is curious?
Yeah.
How did you get to be this centered place?
Where I went, where I am now, a lot of inner work, and it's kind of that like personal development junkie to a certain degree. Oh my gosh, and I've done so much, not just how do I make the personal transpersonal? How do I make it that the things I'm seeing in society, I'm not just like pointing fingers at, but I see how it relates to self,
Sure.
and this process over and over again. And it's the same process our babies go through, right? Of like, I understand the world. Now, what does the world say about me? I see this in myself. What does that say about the world around me and what I'm doing? And the tools that I built, right? That's process. The tools that I built are so many, so vast. I have access to so many different things. But core to what I do with people now, core like of everything that I've done, the giant toolbox, the whittled down elements are meditation and movement, and then mindful integration. And the meditation I do is typically a journey meditation that supports the energy and the self-awareness. And what it does is it breaks the space between stimulus and response, right? The the door slams because I'm angry. That's the stimulus. My response is, okay, I'm going to take a breath because I realized I actually hit a point that was not okay in that fight.
Sure.
Can I back the stimulus up to something earlier, right? How do we do that? Movement is the nervous system, right?
Hmm.
So much of what was going on in my childhood and the suppression that I was feeling with emotions was the suppression of my nervous system. It then showed up as like weight in my body. It showed up as feeling like I'm just so tired. All I have the energy for in the evenings is to just watch a TV show or at certain points when I was in real significant burnout, I got to go lay in my bed and turn the lights off when I'm not working, and the only thing I have energy for is work. So that the movement is the release. It's the finishing, the processing of that stress in the body. And I very much, there's, I'm going to blank on his name right now. There's a movement in somatic movement, essentially. That's all about that. And then the mindful integration is we've worked through the energies and the inner pieces. We've moved through the body. How do we bring it to the brain and the mind and actually give it meaning in a way that comes from within, instead of, oh, I understand. I read the book. Oh, I understand. I watched the movie. I have consumed it. No, like, it's actually coming up and into the mind of, no, I feel this in my body, this relaxation, the sense of safety. Okay, what does that tell me about what I need in my environment? What does that tell me about who I am as a person? And that's the real thing. Yeah.
So good. So good. We kind of covered a whole gamut of things today.
Yeah.
What would you say? What is your golden nugget of wisdom that you have learned through this journey that you've been on? Um, you know, what do you really
I
want
think
the audience to take away?
it's what we shared in the beginning, which is a regulated nervous system will change the motherfucking world.
Yeah.
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 Period.
Yep. Period.
If
That's
you wanna model, if you want you being it,
yeah.
that's what the world needs right now.
Yeah. Be the change, right? You physically be the change.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. And Ash, if somebody in the audience wants to connect with you, how can they
Yeah.
do that?
Ash Mars, I have a pretty strong presence on Facebook if you find me there, and YouTube are my main channels currently. Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, thank you so much for being here today and being a guest on the Secret Keepers podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining the Secret Keepers podcast. If you found this episode helpful, please give us a like and follow so we can invite you back. And if you just want more, visit CorinneZuleger.com. Remember, you're not alone.